Endless Hustle, presented by Doc Swinson's, the legendary whiskey blenders from Ferndale, Washington. I absolutely love Doc Swinson's, and if you haven't tried it, go to their website and check out their selection. All right, we got a great day on the Endless Hustle because the guy in front of me has that I've got the number one movie in the country glow going on. Anthony Michael Hall, congratulations. Hollywood Kills, number one movie in all the land. It is a good week to be you, isn't it?
I appreciate it, pal. Good to see you again. Yeah, it feels great, man. I can't deny it. I have to say, it feels great to be a part of a movie that people are waiting for and that are excited to see, man. You know, it's great.
Obviously, the original was such a classic. And, you know, you always wonder, are people going to really respond? It's kind of a different generation. You've got an enormous part in this. People freaking responded. Like, people really were waiting for this movie. So going in, were you worried? Are people going to respond? And now coming out, are you like, hallelujah, people loved it?
Well, my first response to that was definitely the hallelujah happened. When I was a kid, I'm 53. So the first one came out in 1978, right? And going into this experience, for some reason, I somehow thought there might have been 20 in this franchise. This is, in fact, the 12th movie in the franchise. And to your question, yeah, I mean, that's the most exciting part, that there's such an enormous audience for this. And they are a very serious fan base. They're very rock and roll. They're very specific about their likes, their dislikes. They can tell you about every mask, every sequel. So the fact that, in this last year that the picture's been delayed has been really interesting, because I've gone to kind of Halloween school, kind of learning about the fan base, and they're very specific. So that's the best feeling, that the picture came out and it's really meeting the audience that is hungry for it. And we're just thrilled. We're all really excited. Feel very blessed,
Let's talk some Jamie Lee Curtis, because I've had the opportunity to interview her multiple times. She might legitimately be the most charismatic, charming, and nicest woman on the planet. Yeah. Please reaffirm that she is that way on set as well.
No, she is, man. She's the truth. She really is. She's awesome. She's down to earth. She's real. And I also feel she's someone who really has digested the lessons of her life, it seems. I mean, those are personal to her, not just her career, because the reason I say that is I see such a great spirit about her. She's got a real compassion for others, a real understanding, is very encouraging and supportive of others. I mean, like, there's a very well-rounded woman there, and she's a great person. So that's been really interesting for me, because when we made the film, I didn't really get too many opportunities to, share a meal or anything with her or spend time. So in the time since and during the press tour, I've had more opportunities to speak with her. And I would just echo those things that I shared with you. Yeah, she's super cool. Really a lot of fun.
You've been all over the press recently. Obviously, there have been so many questions about your now iconic 80s career. I even forget how many movies you were in. And I had Andrew McCarthy on the show recently. You guys were such a part of my childhood. And just, being able to do this as a career and talk to you guys and girls who I grew up with is just amazing. As you've been doing these different interviews and reviewing and just kind of reflecting on the John Hughes stuff and the Brat Pack stuff and all this cool stuff, has it been kind of surreal to be talking about it and reliving it all again?
Yeah, it has. But in fairness, something that kind of never stopped because of the greatness of John Hughes, who was not just a mentor to me, but he was really a great friend. And I think that what he did for myself and Andrew and many of us, a whole generation of actors, was really incredible. Not only did he put us to work, but it's the spirit with which he worked. He was truly collaborative. He was always kind of having fun and joking and conspiring with the actors to make their performances better. And it was just an ongoing discussion with him when we're doing the creative work. It was really a blast, so I always salute him. I have never stopped talking about John Hughes all these years later, and nor will I, because, he gave me my career. I wouldn't be here without him. So that's never lost on me. And I love the guy. I really miss him. I miss him tremendously.
So take me back to that time. I talked to Andrew all about this. Growing up during that era, there was such an innocence. There was no social media, no cell phones. There was it was like a mystery around Hollywood. And if you were young and famous in Hollywood, where people weren't pulling their phones out every 2 seconds, catching you in some shitty moment you don't want to be caught in, there had to have been just this unique period experiencing that. What was it like as a kid living through that?
Great question. It was very surreal. I think my first brush with that kind of notoriety, I'm not a big fan of the word celebrity, but I mean, I just feel like, yeah, it was kind of shocking and it's a little off-putting. It's exciting too, because someone, all of a sudden you're kind of being acknowledged and recognized for your work. And for me in my life, here I sit at 53, all those years ago, it's a little scary too. It's a little off-putting because it started happening when I was around 15 and I was still a dorky kid in high school. You know what I mean? So, but I think that a lot of it had to do with my New York City upbringing. The fact that I'm actually born in Boston, but raised in New York City. I think, it's the reason I named my production company Manhattan Films after that, because I feel like New York was my great teacher. It just exposed me to everything, multiple cultures, all types of business, just life in every capacity you could imagine. So I think I consider New York my great teacher, and that gave me a strong backbone along with my tough Irish, Italian, Catholic mom.
I always love to know with the people I have on the show, is there any sports inclinations? And I'll do a ton of research. I actually saw that you got to play golf with one of my all-time favorite athletes, John Daly. So my question to you is, are you a big golfer? And then secondly, talk to me about getting to play with Daly and the Daly experience.
Great question. Well, that guy's a legend. He was incredible. He rolled up with the rock and roll blaring. I mean, this guy was a hoot, He had a beer in hand. He was a lot of fun to play with. I've actually, to your question, I'm not a great golfer. For many years, I was one of these people I would be invited to things. And to be honest, I'm very kind of, introverted. So I didn't often say yes to these things. But in the last couple of years, I had a change of heart and I started playing some different pro-ams and getting out there and hacking away. And I'm no threat on the links, buddy, believe me. But like most guys, you get out there, you have a laugh, you laugh at yourself. And, I just had a great time. But he was really fun. I got to meet John at one of the pro-ams a couple of years ago, and he was awesome. It was actually Johnny Damon's in North Florida, in Orlando. So that was great. It's also a thrill for me, too, in those situations. I'm meeting great athletes, guys I looked up to as a kid. And certainly in the benefits category, it's a really nice thing to be invited to these things.
Golf is the ultimate humbling sport. And you can take the greatest athlete from anywhere, you put him on a golf course, and all of a sudden, the athletic
putts hacking into the trees. That's me too, man. Yeah.
Who were some of the ones that you got to play with who kind of surprised you at how good they were with golf? And who were some of the ones who just weren't so great?
Well, I don't want to disparage anybody, but we had this little round of shoot offs at the beginning, and Daly was doing something at this thing at Johnny Damon's event a couple of years ago with his wife. He was tapping the ball off of his driver and then knocking it into a target. So he was unbelievable. It was like hacky sack skills, but with a golf club. So I would say Daly was very impressive. But like I said, I love meeting all those athletes, former NFL guys, fighters. But I think Daly was a standout because he really has fun, that guy. What a blast to be around.
Going through the 80s, you must have had just such incredible access to some really cool shit. What were some of the coolest moments when you look back that this kid from Boston/New York could have never imagined?
You're not kidding. Great question. One of those was that night, because that same night that I met Tyson, and I was with Paul Gleason, God rest his soul, I met the great Muhammad Ali that night. And he signed a napkin for me at the old Barney, what was the old restaurant? Was it Charlie O's? Remember, it used to be in the ground floor of the Madison Square Garden? And I met Ali that night, and he wrote on a napkin, which I still have framed to this day. He wrote, "To Michael, enjoy life. It's later than we think." And what a great reminder. But that was one of them, certainly, running with Tyson, just being able to, I've always been a fan of this literary notion of standing on the shoulders of giants. There's been a lot of people in my life that had such a positive impact. Harold Ramis, the great director, Matty Simmons, produced Vacation. Those guys gave me my start. John Hughes, working for Lorne Michaels on SNL, and just being so blessed and fortunate to be a part of this wild industry that we're in, and entertaining people. And that's never been lost on me. I've always, been very grateful for that I have a creative job, and then I get to do something that's fun. Look, man, at the end of the day, it's make believe, for a living, and I'm grateful for it. But when we have a project like this, that's, everybody knocked it out of the park. David Gordon Green and Blumhouse. I mean, my hat's off to all of them. So Danny McBride, David Gordon Green, Jamie Lee, Jason Blum, I just salute them. And I'm so grateful that they included me in this family, and that the pictures is doing great, man. It opened to over 50 million this weekend. So it's great news.
Coming out of the 80s, obviously you're sitting here with the #1 movie in America. But when you're coming out of that era, was it kind of a thought process? What's the next steps of my career? I've kind of been one of the kids of the 80s, one of these mega stars. What next? Was there ever a fear of what next?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, as you know, I mean, fear can wear 1,000 faces, and fear is a driver. The idea of not wanting to just stop there, just to continue. So that really was in my mind all those years ago, even as a kid. And my father, who was a great manager, God rest his soul, Tom, who passed on, he always taught me that. And just to keep chipping away at, to stay consistent, to stay accessible. And, here I sit 45 years later. I started in 1976. I did a play with Steve Allen when I was 8 years old, man. So my career actually outlives, it's been around, it's even longer at this point than the Halloween franchise, because I started back in 1976. So I'm just filled with gratitude that, I had that kind of fighter spirit, that I kept going, and that I was able to traverse all the ups and downs of it. And, I'm really glad I did, because there was great days like this coming, which I had no idea, so I'm really, the success is even sweeter, certainly here, as I said.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. When you're a kid and you're having these huge movies, you're probably like, this is never going to end. Like, I'm going to be a movie star for the rest of my life. Here you are now as a middle-aged man, and you get to experience that after going through the ebbs and flows of a long Hollywood career. How does that taste different today versus as a kid?
It hits different, it tastes different, and it's just a great thing, And the other day it was so funny. My wife was jumping over the moon. She was really excited and riled up, and she was looking at me like, "Aren't you excited?" I said, "Of course I am," but I was also kind of processing it. You know what I mean? Because as it's the old George Bernard Shaw line: "Youth is wasted on the young." When you're young, you think a lot of things that you realize you're going to unlearn, right? But it just tastes even sweeter. It's just a great feeling. The desert I've crossed, I know what I've been through, my ups and downs, the stupid mistakes I made, and then I'm just grateful to God that I had the discipline, the strength, the tenacity to keep reinvesting in myself and to keep fighting forward.
Were there ever moments where you thought, this is it, I'm giving up, it's time to go sell real estate?
Probably a few hundred times in the last 3 or 4 decades. Absolutely, man. I'd be lying if I said different, right? You got to stay humble with this. And that's the thing too. I think that success, it's nothing succeeds like success, as the old saying goes. But there's also that great Bob Dylan line: the greatest success is failure, but failure is no success at all. So I think as human beings, we learn from both. We really do. And I think that we really can even learn more from our failures. And I've had plenty. So, the success tastes even sweeter now, man.
When you're on set and you see Michael Myers, because we're talking like icons, right? But you get to see it up front, firsthand, in real life. Was there a part of you that became a little kid in that moment? Like, shit, I'm on set with Michael Myers?
Well, you know what? Let's commit this to ink somewhere. Hope somebody will pick this interview up. My spirit animal being Conor McGregor, I was fearless, man. I think that's just my Irish hard head. I just was like, let's go, man. I was ready to take him on. It's really funny too, because Chris Nelson, who's our great special effects guy, he would always have his old camp of great artists helping and assisting him. So James Jude Courtney and I kind of gave each other space. And he's a great guy. He couldn't be cooler. But during the making of the film, again, even though it's make-believe, you got to really buy those circumstances. You got to believe it for yourself, and you got to go through your own process. So when I'm on set, I'm doing everything from stretching and shadow boxing, listening to Led Zeppelin. I'm doing all kinds of stuff, and I do all that just to kind of loosen myself up. So when the camera rolls, I can attack it and go for it. So yeah, there was no fear, but it was pretty cool to look over and see him there, with that mask on. So it just gave me more energy to kind of put back into the role. My
brother, this has been a blast of an interview. Thank you for a great chat. Congratulations. I always love talking to somebody after the movie is number one, when the nerves are gone. No matter what, I got the biggest movie in the country. Life is good. On to the next role.
I love it. And here's one of these.
By the way, before I let you go, I want to ask, when you have this type of successful movie, obviously the congratulations have to be pouring in. But do you see like a renewed amount of exposure? Like, are scripts coming out, even though it's only been a few days, but because you're everywhere right now, do you feel like all of a sudden more opportunities are arising even this quickly?
Well, in all humility, Jim, I certainly hope so. The company that I'm working with is Untitled. They're a fantastic group, and I hope that we'll get more opportunities that'll be coming in. But I also have my own projects, things that I'm developing. So absolutely, that's my hope and prayer. I really hope so.
Anthony Michael, it's been a pleasure. Now we're friends, and I'm going to call you Mike moving forward. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show, my man.
Great to see you again, buddy. Appreciate this very much, man.
Same here, brother. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot, buddy. All right, man. Take care.